so very grateful that everyone is here, and it's just great to see so many people come out for this event. So Taffety Punk Theater Company has really had it with violence against women. Absolutely, 100%. And we always wonder what we can do, what more we can do to make a more positive impact on the community, to stop these events from happening maybe before they start, or what we can do when somebody we love has been assaulted. If there's anything we can do to reach out and help. So we've brought you guys together. We brought these organizations together here in the back. Wolf Trap Opera, we're delighted, was ready to team up with us. That's Leanne from Wolf Trap. Hello. And a lot of this came about because Leanne and I, we have done this adaptation of The Rape of Lucrece by Shakespeare on and off for like 8 years, and they are now performing The Rape of Lucretia by Benjamin Britten. It's a great show. We saw it last night, so definitely, if you have a chance to get out to Wolf Trap Barns, definitely check that out. But what's amazing about the scripts is that none of these writers really approach this subject with Lucretia as very much the protagonist, and looking at like what is she dealing with. And I feel like we don't do enough of that in America, is ask, what does a woman feel like when she is encounters any man, or encounters catcalling on the street, or how does it feel to be a woman and walk down the street? And I feel like definitely men, hello, I feel like we can all do better to help women live in a safe space and have a safe environment. So to that end, we've invited Men Can Stop Rape. They're a great organization in town. They're here. And there'll be time tonight between acts to go to these tables and talk to Becca from Men Can Stop Rape, or Indira and her staff from the DC Rape Crisis Center. There's also representatives from the District Alliance for Safe Housing in the back. So these people create safe spaces for women so that the violence can stop, and they help them transition into a hopefully more positive new life. We also have a representative from NARAL in the back, so thank you. So I will be encouraging you all night to go back there, volunteer, sign up for mailing lists, do what you can. And the last group I want to welcome is, and certainly not the least, New Sass Productions is back there. Very good friends of ours. Many of you know that the Taffety Punk label has a all-woman Shakespeare group under our umbrella, and the Riot Girls, that they call themselves. And New Sass is another very exciting, actively producing plays for women to do. So we're very happy to have them here. It's a very positive element to be in the room, so we're very grateful for that. Right now, I would like to introduce Indira from the DC Rape Crisis Center, just to say a few words about their work. Come on up here, Indira, say hi.
And I am the interim executive director of the DC Rape Crisis Center. The DC Rape Crisis Center is the oldest rape crisis center in the country. For the last 44 years, we have bared witness and held space for the stories and experiences of survivors of sexual assault. What we know to be true is that in a time where we are seeing things on the news as relates to the Stanford rape case, the work of rape crisis centers and the consciousness of us as human beings is ever so important. We at the Rape Crisis Center, we provide individual and group counseling for survivors of sexual abuse. We serve men and women. All of our services are free. We provide training and technical assistance to individuals and community members. What we want to do as we usher in, the third act is that we have to begin to shift the culture. We have to begin to shift the consciousness and change the narrative around sexual violence. This is not just a women's issue. This is not just a men's issue. This is everyone's issue when 1 in 4, 1 in 6 men are being sexually violated. We are so excited to be here with you all, and we are so glad that you all are doing this. as you know, we have been on the ground here in the Washington, D.C. community for a very, very long time, and sexual violence in the District of Columbia is at a high. And so if you want to partner with us or any of our brother or sister agencies for the DC Rape Crisis Center, and specifically, we have a volunteer program that we offer 3 times a year. You can definitely come back to the table and get more information on that. If you are looking for services, we can also talk to you all about that as well. But again, thank you all for just engaging in this conversation, for holding this space. And again, we will be in the back if you have additional questions or comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Indira. And now we do have a representative, Becca, from the group Men Can Stop Rape, and she will tell you about their work. Very important that they're looking at it from the other side, and they're actually going after the men. But Becca will tell you more. Going after the men.
We have been doing the work here in DC and nationally now for what will be 20 years next winter, so we're very excited about that. It's been a lot of work. There's been a lot of changes that have happened here and in the country and internationally over the past 20 years, and so we are really proud of the work that we're doing and excited to see what happens moving forward. Men Can Stop Rape, like was said, we do the primary prevention. We're on the front end of things. We believe that if we can re-educate, re-socialize men specifically to mobilize on the issues of men's violence against women, we can stop the need. Not that we don't need it, centers like the DCRCC, but we will be able to work with men so that they are not harassing, not assaulting, they're not hurting women, they're not causing violence against women. So we provide technical assistance and trainings. We do clubs here in DC and nationally. Men of Strength for young boys and men, middle school and high school, and Women Inspiring Strength and Empowerment Wise clubs for young women around the issues of sexual assault, around healthy masculinity, healthy femininity. We believe that if we can get it early with these young men especially, we can create a world where there is no longer sexual violence perpetrated against women. We also have an app, a phone app here in DC for all of DC, and then we're slowly growing around the country. It's a sexual assault app. It has a 911 button. It's got your GPS location. There's emergency contact information, all your health information. It provides resources for if there is an assault, what to do next, who to talk to next, who you can reach out to. It's a free service. I use it all the time to tell my friends that I come home safe at night. It's nice having a little bit of extra support walking through the city. Yeah, so that is us. We are also in the back. We have trainings all the time here in DC and throughout the country. So if you're interested, let me know. I can get you some more information about that, and we'll be back there. So thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys. So yeah, and definitely please talk to the District Alliance for Safe Housing and NABRAL and New Sash too. These are great organizations. We spend a lot of time at Taffety Punk raising money for the work that we make, and we spend a lot of time, I'm sure Wolf Trap does the same. But tonight is really about these other organizations, and it's about putting something else positive in the world and really trying to do something to make a difference in the world. So, if you have even donations that you can give, I'm sure they have information for you back there, and just to keep something positive going. Is super duper. Thank you all so much. I also want to thank St. Stephen's Church, and I don't know if Mike is still here, but Mike and Mark Anderson of Positive Force and We Are Family helped us get this show together in this room, and I just want to say thank you guys so much for letting us do this here. It's great. So now I would like to welcome our first guest, artist. Her name is Tracy Cox, and I'm going to see if I get this right, Tracy. Feminist spoken word and classically trained voice against the patriarchy. Yes!
Thank you so much. My name is Tracy Cox, and this piece is called 8 Years. I wrote these words for everyone who struggles in their youth, who won't accept deception instead of what is truth. It seems we lose the game before we even start to play. Who made these rules? We're so confused, easily led astray. Let me tell you that everything is everything. Everything is everything. After winter must come spring. Everything is everything. There's an ever-present feeling of being watched as you walk through the world as a woman. These men who watch me, convinced that I am just a part of the world that exists for them to comment on. I am a tree or a pothole. I am the chicken and the egg, but until he sees me, I don't exist, and I exist for him to see. I ignore you when you harass me because I'm late for work and I don't want to engage, because I'm coming home from work and I'm exhausted and I don't want you to follow me, because I'm really not in the mood to be called a bitch or a fat bitch or an ugly bitch, because I don't even want you to look at me with that ugly gaze you've been taught. So much of what life is as a woman is identifying and navigating around the things you don't want. Attention you don't want, criticism you don't want, violence you don't want. Men are encouraged to go after what they want, to ask for it and relentlessly pursue it. And women are encouraged to focus on what they don't want, to quietly and gracefully ballroom dance through the minefields of harassment, exploitation, and assault, the only reward for which is not getting blown up. We as women are taught the inevitabilities of the patriarchy as facts of human nature. We're not encouraged to really confront them as immoral or unethical or evil. That would be a waste of time. We're taught to just avoid them. Just avoid them. Don't walk home alone at night. Don't drink too much. Don't drink anything. Don't leave your drink unattended. Don't let that professor casually close his office door if you know it's good for you. Don't take an Uber. Don't take the metro after dark. Don't take the metro before noon. Don't put a man in the friend zone. Whatever made you think a man wanted to be your friend. All good advice for staying alive and intact in this society, but all part of a dreary and never-ending textbook for women entitled How to Postpone Your Rape for as Long as Possible. Everything is everything. What is meant to be will be. A woman was raped at 10 a.m. on a weekday on a metro car on the Red Line last month. And I'm so angry. I'm so angry that happened to her on her way to work, with the dull light of day streaming in through the dirty, scratched metro windows. I'm angry at that rapist, at the knife in his hand, that he exposed himself 2 months ago on the metro, that the police identified him, that the police did nothing, that he thought he got away with it, that he thought he could go bigger. I'm angry that monstrous, mystical stranger rape is the only kind communally seen as a threat, the only kind we're taught to punch and kick in the groin at self-defense, as there's not yet a mental health self-defense class at the Y that will teach you that you might not ever need to mace someone, but you will almost definitely be in a situation sometime where suddenly you're not having fun and you're not wanting to continue. And to have any chance to change the course of what's happening, you will need both self-esteem and belief in your own body autonomy. And unfortunately, our society knows that if we arm women with those two things, our safe, comfortable systems will immediately start to self-destruct, and maybe there's still just too many men who value their own privilege over the sanctity of women's bodies for that to happen. I'm angry that at least 1 in 6 American women will be the victims of sexual assault. I'm angry that 4 out of 5 of those assaults will be perpetrated not by a monster on a subway, but by a friend or an acquaintance or a family member, a coach or a teacher or a pastor or a brother or an uncle or a dad. I'm angry that only 2 out of 100 rapists will ever see any jail time, and when they do, if they're a white college athlete, it'll be 6 months plus probation, and if they're black, it'll be 25 to life. I'm angry that when I read about that metro rape, for one awful moment, I actually thought of that victim as lucky. Lucky that no one was going to give a shit about what she was wearing, that no one was going to ask her about her dating history. And in that moment, I wished with all of my heart that maybe she would be lucky. Maybe she would be the one who would know right from the beginning that none of it was her fault. Not one single thing had anything to do with her, because sometimes you have to waste a wish on something you know won't come true. Everything is everything. What is meant to be will. I was raped when I was a teenager by an acquaintance, and I convinced myself that it was okay. I was unconscious and I could not consent. I was so ashamed and embarrassed by the facts and the context of my assault that I had lost my virginity to a date rape at a party, that I could not acknowledge to anyone or myself what had happened. I told my friends that it was fine, it was fine, it was fun, it was fine. I could not divorce my rape from my appearance, as the only reason I was there, the only reason I was able to push it down so fast and so far was because I was honestly happy to be desired. I had internalized every message ever sent to me about my body, about how far I was away from the ideal woman. I felt I had no value without anyone wanting to be with me. If women are objects and our only value is our attractiveness to men, then driving a man to that point where he couldn't help himself, he couldn't think straight, he couldn't talk, he couldn't ask me anything to make sure that I was conscious. That was a compliment, right? To me, my rape meant that maybe I had some value in this world. When I think now about the cognitive dissonance, the mental gymnastics, the internalized misogyny involved in feeding that line of thought that I needed to stay physically upright in the world for so many years. I still want to light my face on fire. I want to be a human torch, and I want to burn the world down, not to change it, just to watch it suffer and die. Lies can only exist as long as we have the energy to perpetuate them, and eventually everything began to rot away under my skin in the dark. I hated myself, and I couldn't ever quite figure out why. If I could be such a shame-filled fraud with all that rot lying just beneath the surface, How could I walk through the world without feeling like an imposter, like every new step I took might accidentally rip open the curtains and yank open the door to show my hideous, stinking corpse swinging on a string behind it? I dream of the 100th Cosby victim coming forward, and two men at a cocktail party casually saying to each other, "I believe her." I dream of men who care about this as much as women do, not because of their mothers and their daughters and their wives, not because of their relationships to women, but because they are invested in women as human beings. Men who refuse to let rapists define masculinity, men who challenge dehumanizing locker room garbage, men who realize that if they're one of the good guys, then statistically speaking, maybe one of their buddies is one of the bad guys. And that when they're laughing at that harmless sexist joke, they're just reconfirming to those guys that their toxic view of women is normal. I dream of Shakespeare's poem and Britten's opera and all 500 episodes of SVU becoming relics of a more primitive time. Anthropological studies detailing a society that simultaneously despaired of its own wretchedness with the highest art while propping up its own systems of violence and oppression as universal law. It took me 8 years to finally face it for what it was and what it meant. 8 years of reading survivor stories and connecting the dots that maybe I was one too. Of discovering that my value was inherent and utterly separate from my body, and that what happened wasn't a compliment. It wasn't deserved. It wasn't because I couldn't handle my liquor. It wasn't no big deal. It wasn't a reality check. It wasn't an unfortunate fact of humanity. It wasn't campus culture and binge drinking and the promiscuity that goes along with that. It was a crime that started near my cervix and then reached its fingers all the way up to wrap around my brain, affecting my relationships, my behaviors, my grades, even the way I walked down the stairs, suddenly always afraid that I would fall. When I finally summoned the courage to rip back the curtain and open the door, all that was hiding in there was my strength and my self-possession and my voice. And I found that if I walked out and faced the light unflinchingly, I'd be able to capture and fracture it. I'd be able to bounce new colors out wherever I went, like a prism, a diamond forged in fire, meant not to set the world ablaze with flame, but with light, the dazzling light of my own self-realized radiance. I am a glowing neon beacon of truth and justice, and I fight for equality and human dignity. And that sure as shit makes me an imposter in this imperialist, white supremacist, heteropatriarchy, and that's just fucking fine. I know there's other imposters all around me. Meet me in the light when you're ready. Anoint yourself with glitter and curse words, self-knowledge and strength. I'll be waiting there for you, as my sisters waited for me, with my hand outstretched, a big smile on my face, and a list of shit to do. Let's love ourselves, and we can't fail to make a better situation. Tomorrow our seeds will grow. All we need is dedication. Everything is everything. What is meant to be will be. After winter must come spring. Change it comes eventually.
Thank you, Tracy. That was awesome. So awesome. Next up, we have Teresa Spencer. And she may be able to tell you what's been happening, but can I?
You can.
Yes? So catcalling is a disgusting thing that happens. And it makes me embarrassed to be a man. And Teresa has chosen to respond to catcallers with prose poems to unrequited love. So we're delighted to have Teresa here. This is the first time these will be read aloud, so come on up, Teresa.
A prose poem to the trucker who blasts his air horn at women as he passes on the right, making them startle and twist round and wonder, are my brights on? No, it's a blue mid-morning, and I'm pretty sure I see your fingers waggling suggestively in the rear view as you pull away, leaving me with only a memory. A hairy patch of elbow jutting from the driver's side window, a whisper of exhaust. Our connection, so fleeting. Your come on, so appealing. What is your number? How do I date you? I see you, sanding the wooden rungs of our children's treehouse ladder, driving me in the cab of your big rig to my colonoscopies, holding my paper-thin wrist in your flat, chappy palm as I slip, cherished, beloved from this world. Another love lost to the dotted yellow line disappearing over the horizon. Hi, everybody. Can you see and hear me? Yes. I don't mean like did the patriarchy erase me. I mean, can you see and hear me? That's good. All right, cool. I'm going to read you some poems. Don't feel scared, it won't hurt. My name is Teresa Spencer. As Marcus told you, I'm an actor and I'm a writer here in DC. And just to give you some context, I was, in fact, one day driving on Route 50, and all of a sudden there was an air horn in my blind spot, and I did that thing that, like, shit, is it going to be an accident? Oh no, it's just this trucker who wants to have sex with me, right? And then I started to think, like, just for the sake of the thought experiment, like, what did that guy actually want from that exchange? Like, what did he want from blasting his air horn at me and then just disappearing? What if it was actually his sort of like misguided, like ham-fisted way of connecting with me, right? Like, what if he was really trying to be like, oh, you seem like a nice girl. Can we get coffee? Right? And so if we like start pursuing street harassment or road harassment or whatever that was to its logical conclusion, then like, maybe that was the beginning of our love story. So I wrote him that love poem, and then I put it online. And then I wrote some more. A prose poem to the street harasser who just turns up the volume. How you doing tonight? You asked me, sotto voce. And then again, still in dulcet tones, but with rising fervor, how you doing tonight? And finally, a third time, your throaty baritone ricocheting off the night air, how you doing tonight? I like that you understand passion and volume to be equivalent. You're obviously a subtle man. Delicate in sensibilities, refined in delivery. Might you and I continue the conversation? Let's scream sweet nothings right into each other's faces. I want to roll over in the morning to discover discover your warm body swathed in a tangle of bed sheets and dappled sunlight, and shout, "Good morning, lover!" into your tender eardrum. I want to grow old with you, accumulating noise complaints and early onset hearing loss. Someday, when we are frail and gray, my love for you will rest gently in the simple exchanges between us. Baby, it's your brother on the phone. No, I know your mother's dead. It's your brother. Just pick up the phone. God, I burn for you. So Juliet says to her Romeo, "I have no joy of this contract tonight. It is too rash, too unadvised, too sudden, too like the lightning, which doth cease to be ere one can say, it lightens." And I feel like that's exactly what goes down between dudes hollering on the street and the women who are just like trying to get to work, goddammit, right? It's these little love affairs that spark and fade, and what are we supposed to do with the tragedy of that they don't get to blossom? Well, you satirize it on the internet, obvi. So I called this collection Too Like the Lightning, Prose Poems to My Almost Loves. And when I first started, I mean, every woman in here knows we probably have like 40 examples of street harassment, and you start to forget them because they're not that interesting, but there are usually, 5 or 6 or 7 that stand out in your memory, either because the dude was so creative, and you got even props, or because it was dangerous. So I had a list of my own 5 or 6 that I wanted to turn into jokes, and I started putting them online, and before I even got through my list, women started messaging me their stories and commissioning poems. And pretty soon I had a list of poems to write that was longer than I could keep up with, which is fun as a writer and really disheartening as a woman. And also, as these commissions were coming in, the definition of how women get put in their place when they're in public spaces started to expand and expand. A prose poem to the online dating guy who sends women effusively complimentary messages and then, when they don't respond, promptly calls them the C word. First, you sounded the depths of my soul through the shallow, imperfect instrument of my OkCupid profile. You knew without knowing that I seem genuine and like I like to have a good time. You knew me better than I know myself. And then, your sense of righteous justice. Someday, that raw Cro-Magnon aggression will fend off my immigrant rapist, or keep the government fascists from coming to our homestead and taking our guns, while I gather our weeping children around the hem of my skirt and pull my bonnet over my rolling doe eyes. And yet, unfairly, I will never know the comfort of being pressed against your wide, manly chest, because I don't want to get coffee with you, because I'm a little afraid of you, because you called me the C word online. A prose poem to the gentleman who stops to offer women unsolicited parallel parking instructions. You on the sidewalk as I angled my car backwards into a smallish but not impossible spot on 7th Street. In my periphery, a flash of motion. Our eyes met. You held your fists in perfect isolation, giving me to understand that you were gripping an invisible steering wheel. Turn the wheel right, you mouthed, and your hands danced along to illustrate. I don't think you know how adorable you look, standing there on the sidewalk gesticulating. I want to smush your ruddy, helpful cheeks. Just smush them. And tousle your graying, capable hair. What would I have done without your authority on this subject? What will I do wrong next without your partner. Sail with me on this voyage as my sweet, mute semaphorist, capably signaling me through all of life's narrow passages. How are you guys doing? Yeah? Do you have everything you need? Ladies, are you getting equal pay for equal work? I'll do some more, okay? Just a couple more. Here we go. A prose poem to the guy who whipped it out and let flow a stream of urine in the middle of the street right in front of me. It was just after midnight, and on a deserted side street off Connecticut Avenue, the lamplight had turned the asphalt, and the night around it a sort of maudlin Casablanca blue-gray. I parked my car, stepped out, and began to cross the silent street. And just then, you stepped out too. We met like two duelists in an old western. The street was empty, but for us, the air was pregnant. And you, my surprising one, were quick on the draw. You whipped it out and pissed in the street, legs confidently akimbo, shoulders back, gaze steady. More surprising even than the sheer audacity of pissing in the street for an audience of one is that you were wearing a sweater vest and loafers. My darling, my heart, my God among men, you were wearing a sweater vest and loafers. Who are you? It's entirely possible that you just didn't see me there, 20 feet away on an otherwise lonely and lamplit street. But I hope not. I hope that the memory I cling to is a true one, that our eyes met over the rivulet of pee between us, and that, for a moment, however briefly, we were one. So Too Like the Lightning is a living project. I'm still writing poems when women are generous enough to send me their stories, or when dudes are generous enough to say gross shit to me on the street. And also, believe it or not, oddly enough, I'm working with a choreographer right now on turning some of these into a dance, which I can't wait to see what the heck that'll be. You are more than welcome to come check these out at likethelightning.tumblr.com, and you'll find there it's stories from all kinds of women, right? They are young and they are not. They are privileged and not. They are mothers, they're queer, they're risky dressers, and they're business people, right? And all the stories are true. A prose poem to the dude who followed me home in Los Feliz. I remember the clicking of our footsteps in the gloaming, so perfectly in sync. I sped up, I slowed down, and you matched my pace until I hardly knew where I ended and you began. And then, when I paused at the front door, so did you. There were universes in that brief hiccup of silence. God, how I wanted to tumble into the bottomless sea of your eyes. But when I turned to find you, I saw only your knees peeking out from your crouch behind the hedge. Why so shy? I know there can only be one reason for your coy game of follow the leader. You are a magnificent lover. Push me inside the foyer, press me tenderly against the bank of silver corrugated mailboxes, or stagger shamefacedly out of the hedge, mutter, never mind, and shuffle off in the direction of the strip club at the other end of the street. Just one more, you guys. This one's my favorite. A prose poem to the man who told me, my booty looks like it has something to say. It does. My booty has so much to say, mainly that it longs to become conversant in the language of yours. What tender lover's symphony might we together compose? I'll fart like distant clapping. You like a rising snare roll. Trumpets come naturally to mind, but also bass oboe, a soupçon of timpani, low, mournful farts, more ache than sound, quiet, whispered farts, peeping demurely from under the duvet, insistent, honking farts, like when you're trying to feed the ducks and you accidentally stir up a gaggle of aggressive geese. The kind of plaintive, mewling farts that make farmhands look up from their bales and ask if the cat has finally delivered her kittens in the barn. Propulsive farts. Sharts. My booty looked like it got something to say. So much. So much, sweet lover, and it's all for you.